Welcome to Talking Tuesdays with Fancy Quant. And today we are going to have another amazing guest. We are going to have on Jared Broad of QuantConnect, CEO and founder. QuantConnect is looking to democratize quant trading. So they are basically putting this whole quant pipeline together here, specifically on the buy side or the investing side, with markets and exchanges and alternative data sources and all kinds of really cool features here. But we'll see here in another episode as well, my struggles with getting a quant pipeline set up, running from beginning to end, from data to employees, to strategies, models, executions, and implementation, all of this. But QuantConnect can do a lot of amazing things for you guys. And so I hope you guys enjoy this interview with Jared. Without further ado, let's dive on in. So can you tell me a little bit about what is QuantConnect? What is it? Because I've heard about it a lot, but I've just never taken the time to dive into these sorts of details.
Yeah, we are a web platform that lets people go in and design algorithms in C# or Python. And you write a few lines of code and you can run research notebooks, Jupyter notebooks, or point-in-time back tests, or deploy the algorithm through to live trading. And so underneath the hood, you're writing just 20, 30 lines of code. Underneath the hood, there's hundreds of terabytes of financial data, all pre-formatted or ready to go out of the box, nicely maintained and curated. And then there's this rich API that lets you sort of don't need to worry about all the boring stuff, when is the market open and all those fundamentals that you have to try and code into your own system if you're trying to do it yourself. So it kind of lets people focus on building cool alpha generating strategies. And then we do everything we call plumbing in the middle, which is just everything else from data in research to data in live trading and routing orders and live trading.
Okay. So do you guys handle a lot of I'll label it as data engineering, you're handling a lot of the pipelining of trying to get data from sources into the platform, and then at the same time to be able to seamlessly connect that into the markets without having to do all that data engineering behind the scenes?
Yes, exactly. So sourcing high quality vendors, vetting the vendors, making sure the timestamping and the security tracking is correct, and then loading it every day in time for the market to be open so that you've got the latest data and you're able to sort of do research, and then processing it into a format that's easy to use and manipulate in sort of different bars and resolutions. And some of the fun challenges are we get tick data, the SIP and UTP feed. So it's the direct live feeds. And we're taking all that in and trying to build the bars and build it in a format that's easy for people to consume. And so there's just this constant struggle of the market open prices, just simple stuff. What is the market open price? And you have to get down to the tick level, and every tick is tagged with specific flags, and you have to sort of get the right flag, and it's different for different securities. So you have to go for there's 10,000 different securities, all with different tick flags, and it's just it's a full-time job for years and years and years to get it all correct. Yeah. So all the data engineering for financial and alternative data sets. So there's just a massive amount of data there that we're ingesting and packaging for people.
Okay. And so the flags and the ticking has to do with the multiple exchanges, correct?
Multiple exchanges. And then for market on open, for example, it's an official market open auction tick. And recently we were having misreports of the market open price on QQQ. So it's a pretty major ETF. And so we were like, hey, we went to the NASDAQ website and it has a different price to what we're seeing in the tick feed. So we're seeing the market open official auction price is X and QQQ's Y on the NASDAQ website. So what are we doing here? And so we actually had to, in the end, we just had to live trade. We just we were trying to validate what is the actual market open price we're going to get. And so we had to live trade for a couple of weeks, just logging the market open prices every time by placing a market open order in QQQ. And just there's a lot of fun challenges underneath the hood that we're just trying to make everybody's algorithms as accurate and realistic as possible.
Yeah. No, I went to Chicago and sat on a trading desk right after grad school. And I was just wanting to know what do traders do? How does it line up? And they only sold derivative products. And so I'm like, financial engineer, like this is super cool. But then I started asking, like, why aren't we doing equities? And he starts going into, well, you have to flag the trades, you have to line them up, and then there's all this paperwork you have to submit, and then and I'm like sitting there like, okay, so it's a lot more work. And like, this nice, pretty feed of data just rolls on through with the pricing, like you see on, I don't know, like Yahoo Finance or something.
Right.
We're just trading it off. So it's interesting to see that you guys are actually trying to solve a lot of those headaches because they were a small firm specializing in derivatives. And they were just saying you have to hire all this additional staff to be able to actually do all that work.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's we do US equities, futures, options, future options, indexes, index options, crypto, and I think that's all the asset classes, and then like 40 different alternative data sets. And so like fun ones are like streaming news feeds. We've got like tickers mentioned in news articles, and it's delivered in like 50 milliseconds to live trading algorithms. And we're able to do backtest research on those same news articles and sentiment analysis on them. And it's all just magically linked to the underlying securities. Okay. So like you see a CNBC article or whatever, and it mentions Facebook. There's a lot of work that goes into getting it from that text on that website to like a ticker point in time, timestamp correctly, so that the news article says it was released at noon and it was actually available online at like 12:30. I know, like so many little details like that are just, it's all kind of part of the bread and butter of what we take away and just make easy for the quants so they don't need to do that.
So I got a good laugh out of it too. I was perusing the website and saw there was the Wall Street Bets, I think, alternative data source that actually fed into there as well.
Right. So that's a vendor called Quiver Quantitative, and they're gathering and scraping and timestamping it all. And we package it and link it to the securities. And yeah, you can sort of do some fun stuff with some pretty exotic data sets.
Okay. So how did you guys get started as a company? Like what kicked this off? Because you're the founder, correct?
And CEO yes.
So like what drove you to start this?
Yeah, I'm a New Zealander. I'm a biomedical engineer. And kind of like all quants and engineers, we just love playing with the markets. And, if you know how to code, you start looking at the markets and you're like, hey, what if I make a bot or an algo or something and just start, So I kind of always had this passion for the markets and for finance. And I went into consulting and then humanitarian work for a bit and was traveling. And it was just, in humanitarian work, there was just massive amounts of downtime. There was just like 3 months between engagements. And so I was just sitting there bored and just like, okay, let's build something for myself. And I just started building, downloading data, connecting to the Australian stock market exchange at that point. I was trying to do it to Australia, and then I made all the mistakes that everybody makes over and over again. So I downloaded 7 days of data and then perfectly curve fit an algorithm to 7 days of data, and then like got my 8th day of data, and I was like, oh, this doesn't work at all. So I had to go through the same beginning, learning mistakes that everybody goes through. And basically over I just got so into it that I stopped doing the humanitarian stuff and then just started doing this full time. And after like a year and a half full time living in Chile, in Santiago, Chile, in a beautiful apartment, it was cheap rent, and just building algos all day. I thought I had a good strategy, so raised money from friends and family and just started running capital, like 4 times leveraged intraday kind of scalping style strategy. Not scalable at all, but it was a really great introduction to the whole space, and made me realize there's nothing out there like it. Like this was 2012. There was no quant frameworks that we have today. There was no like cheap, reliable data. Everything I was sourcing by scraping exchanges and gathering data myself. And like, there's no way I could afford the $40,000, $50,000 for the data. And so that's how QuantConnect started. It was like, hey, we can make a platform and this can make it super easy for a bunch of people. And yeah, that was a long time ago now. I thought it'd be much easier than it was.
I think we all do. I think we all get really excited and we put in, like that good legwork up front of like, I've got a functioning prototype.
Right.
And yeah, really scaling that up is what takes just a lot more effort and a lot more work to get through
Right.
the
Right.
hurdles to get there.
Yeah. 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 I pitched way too early to a bunch of venture capitalists in like 2012, and they're all like, "Go and build a MVP, go build a prototype." And I was like, "It's like I don't know if we could sort of do a prototype of like a rocket ship to the moon." That's kind of the analogy that I felt like it was. Build an entire online like quant algorithm backtesting framework, build the MVP of that.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, and I pitched over 100, and it was all just no, 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 like way too early, whatever. And then eventually I had, just a few $1,000s left, and was in Santiago in Chile, and I just spent the next like year like locked in a room building the MVP. Just me and like an early team member, Gustavo, and the two of us. Literally, we called it the cupboard because it was just a concrete block of a room, and it was just in a random house in Chile, and it was at the back of a kitchen, so we always had the kitchen smells wafting in. And it was whatever. Just shut the door, sealed some Wi-Fi, and got some good coffee. And yeah, it took a year building to get even a working live trading prototype that we had running my algorithms to get that into like an online platform running, the security linked data sets and all that. But yeah, since then we've we built a website, we built FX, we started doing live trading in 2015, 2014,
Okay.
and started handling more scale as more and more people started using the website, improving the modeling. Like it was trade only data, we added quotes, so now I've got bid ask spread in the fills and all of that, like little modeling improvements here and there, and like all the basics, fees, slippage, fill modeling, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. So
So
this is definitely designed then for the quants. It's in a way getting rid of the not what I would view as non-quant, the quant devy pieces, which is like getting the data, getting the pipelines, lining everything up,
yeah,
uh, getting all the software lined up as well too. So you're not spending time. I mean, for me, as someone who builds models and does research, the last thing I want to do is be like figuring out why the data is not lining up, and then there's like a server issue, and then there's a
yeah,
lag, and then it's just a bunch of headaches.
exactly. And it's like you're doing this modeling, and then you have to go and write to a REST API.
Yeah.
Like, why?
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem to be a good use of people's time. Like, yeah. So we hope that we can take all that away, abstract it away, and just make it so it's a really fun, direct experience. You're just getting like really high output for the work you put in. Like you put in an hour, and you've got something live trading, and you
Yeah.
can route it to the brokerage, and bam, you're like testing the next day before the market opens. And it's a very different experience to most quant firms. But
Yeah, it's one of those things I struggle to explain to people, even to like universities I've been working with who actually train and try to make quants, is explain there's this whole pipeline of like, there's the people that do all the data engineering, get all that set up. Then there's people like me who just want to build models. I don't care about the rest of it. And then typically you have the trader at the end who actually is like complaining the tool's not good enough. And of course you have the quant dev in the middle too, which is implementing those tools into a usable framework, making sure all the details are lined up. And so when you look at the whole framework, it's really the quant devs complaining that the strategy teams or the quants that are building research aren't fast enough. Then you
yeah.
have the traders who are complaining the tools don't work well. So now quant dev's not happy. And you have this whole mix of people. It's like you have to have specialists in every single area to really make
Yeah.
the process flow. Especially a lot of students in universities, they think like, I'm going to go out there and have this really good idea, and then I'm going to spend like 2 hours coding it, and I'm going to like be making millions.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah, then when you get fees and all kinds of headaches in the way and syncing things up, it's just a lot more work, I think, than people realize once you kind of get going.
Yeah. I've seen some really, really awesome firms like in the just getting to know different clients and talking to a bunch of firms about QuantConnect and their internal processes too. And one thing that I heard was like the holy grail of just being able to take the model and deploy it through to production. And that's kind of what we're aspiring to. We want
Right.
it so you can have basically a piece of code that you write in a Jupyter notebook, and you'll be able to live trade in like 10 minutes. Just cutting through or abstracting and codifying it all so it can just be completely portable between the different environments. But we're not quite there, but it's getting close.
Are you guys executing in like C or C++ or something different? Or are you still executing in Python between the connection?
The core engine is all in C sharp.
Okay.
So it has all the speed for all of the low latency work. But then when it goes to the Python layer, it's for modeling and getting just the signals. So if they want to pass back a trade array, it goes back into the engine and starts executing it in C sharp. And handling like all the fills and all the edge cases are all at that layer.
Okay.
So it sort of lets us do the best of both worlds. They can do TensorFlow, Python, machine learning, or low latency C sharp stuff. So
perfect. Yeah, that's my biggest complaint too, is explaining to students. They get in school and a lot of the programs say, go learn C or C sharp or C++. And I'm like, from a research side, I don't want to deal with that. Like that's needed, right, for that execution speed. And of course, you can't compute on markets just in pure Python. So you have to have that balance between the two languages. Python's easy to use. You can code and build models quickly. But then, yeah, you need something that's actually fast and efficient, like C sharp, to get going.
Yeah. So it's a challenge getting Python to be performant. but it's worthwhile. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you guys open source then on your languaging side?
Yes. So we've always had an open source core to the company since like 2014. There's the QuantConnect website, and then the engine that I was talking about, the C sharp engine, that's called Lean, Lean. And Lean handles the data layer, getting all the data that you need, synchronizing it, applying all the modeling, like the portfolio modeling, the margin modeling, all of that stuff. And then all of the routing to the brokerages and getting the fills back or the rejections or whatever it is from the brokerages. And then the algorithm layer is kind of what the user contributes is a plugin, kind of plugs into this engine. So Lean has been around for like 5, 6 years, 7 years. But recently we've kind of even had a bit of an epiphany in the open source space and kind of even doubled and tripled down more on the space. We were looking around and looking at this opportunity that there's all of these financial firms who are reinventing the same fixed connections, the same data ETL, all of them are doing the same thing, and then keeping it closed source because they don't want to share that code with competing hedge funds or competing banks and give them an edge and give them save them work, So I understand that. Yes, I understand. Yeah. But I was thinking that's just absolutely ridiculous. Like in terms of like the world good, we have Linux and we have all of this amazing open source technology where we build this plumbing once and we save all of these engineers writing WebSocket connections. We do all of that work once and then, but we don't do it in finance. And so I think QuantConnect and the Lean engine is the first kind of financial entity where we could actually have an incentive to open source all this stuff. Because if we get more and more people using Lean, we can build like an operating system layer and have an ecosystem kind of platform effect on Lean where we're getting all sorts of different people learning the language and getting jobs in Lean and employers maybe paying to maintain the code base. And so earlier in 2022, we not only open source Lean, but we went and we open source all of our execution layer. So all of there was 16 different brokerage integrations. So there's like Interactive Brokers, Randa for FX, a bunch of different crypto exchanges. And a lot of the times, like companies keep all this execution layer like closed source because they want to make sure you're executing through them. So like one of the ones we did recently was a fix integration to Wolverine. So like how many companies have implemented a fixed connection to Wolverine? there's got to be hundreds, and none of it's open source. So hopefully this will be the last fixed integration to Wolverine ever, and they'll just go and copy the open source from now on. It would be amazing. So we're thinking about this in like a 50-year term. What if Lean becomes like this operating system layer for quant finance? What if we have hundreds and hundreds of brokerage integrations? It's all open source. All the data integrations are open source. So there's no more ETL. There's no more WebSocket connections. There's no more fixed integrations. It's just all just install, pip install, install, Wolverine fix. Done. Yeah.
Are you guys, so I'm trying to think about this from a business perspective, are you guys more looking at this as like an advertising venue as well, where it's like you're happy to hand this out for free? Because obviously firms protect these tightly because it costs money to set them up. But in your guys' case, it's more or less like I don't know, I don't want to say marketing, but it's a nice tool of like, we could easily copy it for free, but at the same time, it's good quality. So it's like, why not go back to QuantConnect to get, data sources, and why not go back to them to get more operating layers? Or is it more just like a contribution to the field in itself, where you just guys see more or less like kind of being a part of the fabric and trying to integrate with everybody across the spectrum of the industry?
I would have thought it was marketing, but I don't think many people understand the impact of it yet.
Okay.
I think what we did though for sure is that the leap of faith was definitely a contribution to the field, because we had no idea what was going to happen, and the continuing open sourcing of that work is totally leaps of faith, with the hope that a critical mass will start seeing mass adoption of that execution layer. And so the counter to it might be, say, the Bloomberg EMSX network. And so it's one of the execution routing networks in the Bloomberg terminal. And that has like 1,300 different brokerages and PBs through a single API. Totally closed source. all inside the Bloomberg networks. And so, yeah, we've got like, 20 now. We're going to just keep on building and open source, and then eventually maybe we'll get to hundreds, the top 100 in the world. And I think it'll be competitive to the Bloomberg EMSX network, for example, but the open source version. And then the easiest way to use it would be to use the Lean engine. You could try and import it as a library to your own system and your own platform, and that would be fine too.
Okay.
But it's a piece of cake to use with Lean. So we're banking on people valuing their time and being, productive and wanting to just get it done. So
yeah, focus more on the strategy side and not on the implementation of it.
Right. Yeah.
Is that why you guys have also chose to use Python for a lot of like the inputs of like people like me on the outside who are going to be coding, is more for that open source, I guess, usability?
We started with C#, and then it was a bit of hard work in 2015 that allowed us to accept Python algorithms and with the same API.
Okay.
And that was just in response to just overwhelming market demand. Like everybody wanted Python. Yeah. And now the statistics are something like 96% of the algorithms built on QuantConnect are all on Python. And the only people that really choose C# are ones who are doing like minute options trading.
Mm-hmm.
Terabytes of information. And so it would take 10 times longer in Python, and it's just, it's worth making it into C#. Yeah.
Okay. And so you guys only support then Python on that layer. You wouldn't support something like R, at least not at this time.
No, we did look into it, and the challenge isn't so much in the technical integration, but as the team's bandwidth. So we just don't have the bandwidth to document R. Like all of the demonstration example algorithms would have to repeat them in a third language, sadly. So we originally had 5. We just had to keep trimming. We had VBA, Java. Yeah. We had no documentation for the other ones. So we're like, hey, we just have to cut them.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, even now where I'm at in FinTech, sounds like we started before I arrived. There's all these languages going. And then there's finally the executive decision on let's not maintain a bunch of different systems and a bunch of different languages. Let's just cut all back into Python because we can use it for, software engineering, a lot of data engineering, and then also all the quant model development stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah,
awesome.
resources are always a key driver in language selection.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's a great universal language too. It's
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
So what has been the struggle for growing QuantConnect? So I looked back. You guys started in 2011. It looks like you're fairly large. And then I'm like looking at it when it pops up, and I'm like, I've never heard of this. And I've been in the industry, I think, for about 8 years by the time I saw it. And I'm just like shocked. And somebody even asked me, they were like, we want to build essentially this. They're explaining this idea to me. And so I'm like, it sounds like a great idea. Like, let me search. And then as soon as I started searching, it's like, then QuantConnect's coming up. And I'm like, you guys, it already exists out there, but just a lot of us haven't heard of it. And
Mm,
perhaps because I'm not on the trading side of this, so I don't interact with trading
no,
software and data feeds and all that.
no, it's not you. It's me. It's we are geeks at our core, and we've done a very pure engineering and an absolutely stunning product, and it's just perfection in the engineering sense. But we are going to be investing a lot more in marketing and business development and outreach in 2023. Um, Definitely for 5 years there in the very beginning too, like 2012 to 2016, 17, there was just a massive build. There was
Mm-hmm.
just so much to do to get to MVP. And so we were to do it right. Like, yeah, if you don't like handle stock delistings, it's fine. But you'll just have this massive bug in your back test and you won't know it until you figure that out. And so you just have this massive, yeah. And then stock selection and building universes and having like dynamic stock selection systems so you avoid selection bias, and all of that was just like massive engineering lifts over the years. So that was a big obstacle to growth, you could say, was that. And then the flip side was also the quant marketing hasn't been our superpower, and also the quant market is relatively small. So like the industry is pretty small, so it kind of relied on word of mouth for a
Okay.
lot.
So we are definitely very elusive as an industry because
Yeah,
my channel keeps growing and I go, yeah, I'll probably cap out around, 10,000 people. Like that's going to be the limit. And then it grows. Now I'm at like 25,000. I'm like, there's only so many quants in the world, but there's this weird, I don't know. Most of us don't want to be contacted.
yeah,
I absolutely hate now as I'm the head of a department. I get all these companies messaging me to come try out all their new products.
yeah.
So I think a lot of us just shut off onto like it's just one more vendor. It's one more software tool.
Right.
And so I think, yeah, cracking that layer is a big challenge of how do you get to these quants who don't want to talk, I mean, I've invited some super interesting people on the channel here and they go, I love your channel and I listen to it and I'm a subscriber and everything, but I don't want to get involved in the marketing space of
Right.
public
Right.
speaking and all those kind of pieces here.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it because I feel the same way. And so I'm very reluctant to message the community. I don't want to spam the community, and I hold their email and their registrations like sacred. Like we've never sold an email list and we'd never do anything like that. And it's like I barely even email them. So I'm like, but it's no wonder that we don't have the marketing presence. But that's we just have to overcome it. And what we try to do instead is you'll see we're publishing quantitative research. So it'll be really epic quant research using an alternative data set that we've onboarded into QuantConnect, and we're using our API to its strength, to its fullest. And then we'll publish some cool research about it. And quants love to read that stuff. So we'll go on. It's not spam. It's different. It's fun. It's
Okay.
brain juice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's worth my time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then you guys also have been working with universities. So one of the ways I found out about you guys was through Queen's, which many of my listeners know. I worked with Queen's Quant Network, doing presentations and talking to them about time series applications. And I was just scrolling through the website, and then I saw your guys' logo, QuantConnect pops up.
Cool.
And I was surprised to learn from you. It's like a bunch of universities are using it, and it's free to them. So how does the free version work, and what does it get you? And how are you guys working with universities as well?
Yeah, sure. So um, one of our uh, one of our core philosophies is we really want it to be equal access. So kind of like how when you go to Amazon Web Services, you can run your little micro blog there on a free instance, or you can run like a mega company and be paying Amazon millions of dollars a year. So we want QuantConnect to be equal access to the power of the engine and the cloud modeling and all the data we have. And so we provide those professors free subscriptions to their classes. They just let us know who their classes are, and the classes go and sign up on QuantConnect. And oftentimes the professor will give them like a class project, or they'll divide into like teams of 3 people per team and then go and build some strategy. And some of the cooler professors have like competitions where they like the teams are competing, and for the last 6 months of the year, it's the part of the grade is going to be on the other sample performance of the strategy and stuff like that. So it's like it's fun. It's a lot of fun, and for us, it's great because we're helping those students get real world experience. They're building real algorithms. They're learning about curve fitting, how sample testing, and all sorts of different fun things. And like, it's one thing to like build an SMA indicator and build something simple, but then 3 months later, the stock has a split or merges with another company. That's not baked into your model. And so there's whole other considerations that people get exposed to in live trading, which is fun.
Okay. Very cool. So what exactly does the tool do here? Let's dive a little more into the tool itself. So is the user actually programming all of the modeling, and then you guys handle the back testing, or is there still coding on the backside of, like, I'd have to build the model? I mean, obviously go through model development. We split the data up obviously into like a testing or a training or like a development sample. And then we'll have finally like a validation sample, and then like a testing sample, where we call out of time in finance. Do you guys automatically split that out, or is that up to the user to kind of split all their data out, set it all up, and then perform all the back testing themselves? Or is there like a tool inside of this that does some of the back testing and kind of alignment issues?
Yeah, it's we maybe should be splitting it out for them. Right now, we trust their judgment in separating it. As we go on, we're trying more and more to impose good judgment on the model builder. So there's a feature scheduled for Q1 this year, which will do something like that. But for the last 10 years, we haven't had that, and people can sort of save an out of sample period or not from their test data.
Okay.
So in the model building process, there's sort of 2 big things. There's initializing your algorithm and then getting data events. And so those are there's lots of other stuff, but those are the 2 key ones. So when you initialize the algorithm, you're kind of asking for data. You're setting a date range for the back test. You're setting sort of the cache, the currencies, the models that you want to use, like the fee models and that sort of thing. So you set up the kind of the realism that you want in the algorithm, and then in the data events, it's literally the price and the alternative data that's happening at that point in time. So we automatically synchronize the data so that you're only seeing this slice of time, and you're not able to sort of look into the future and get any look ahead in there and mess yourself up.
Okay. Yeah, no, perfect. I love having the freedom to move things around. We have tried a few vendors just on the modeling side, and they're always so constraining that often it's like you're trying to do something a little unique or different, and it's hard to explain to the vendor, like, your software is good, but I need some more flexibility, because then they he and haw about it. So it's nice to see you guys have some of that flexibility in there.
Yeah.
Do you guys have set up to where you can actually build the models and then run them like on a fake account for so much time to track performance across? I don't know.
Yes, of course. So one of the other philosophies is that we provide a canvas, and then like a giant toolbox of Lego blocks. Then you can go and build and paint and do whatever you want on top of the canvas. And then we try to stay out of it as much as possible. But then for a lot of people, it's kind of intimidating.
Yeah.
It's just a giant blank canvas. Like, what do I do with this? So we also have to try and balance it and provide ways of going both ways. But the uh, the execution system. So like you get in a model, you're ready to go live trading. We have just a QuantConnect paper trading brokerage. It's a fictional brokerage, but it's real. Like it's real time, sorry. So they'll be filling the trades using real market data with real bid-ask spread, and then presenting it on a live equity chart.
Okay. Does that include in there like the fees that would be tied to like the trading process as well?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Perfect.
So, for example, every brokerage that we implement their fee model. So,
Okay.
whatever it is, volume or interactive brokers per share, and the trades that you're making are applied using their fee model. And we have standardized slippage models and fill models, but the like some brokerages don't support updating orders. Just stuff. They support canceling them and creating a new one.
Yeah.
So when you're doing a back test and you set one of those brokerages, we won't let you update the order. You have to cancel the order and recreate it in a back test. And then when you go through the live trading, we'll do the same thing. So it'll work.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I think a lot of those details are things that so I don't work on the trading side, but I read papers on like the issues with all these and trying to get those lined up. And then the headaches of dealing with, exchange A and exchange B, or like you switch product types.
Yeah.
And everyone assumes that it's nice and easy and fair and it's this free market. But there's always all these nuanced details of fee structures and rules and regulations around what you can and can't do. So it's nice to see that you guys are trying to make the annoying pieces
Yeah.
a little more automated, so we're not having to do those every day.
Automated, open source, so we do it once, everyone can just clone it and you don't need to worry about it. And then hopefully we're starting to see more and more contributions to it as well. So we're a team of 9 full-time, and we're looking to grow. We'll probably add 2 or 3 people this year, but it's not going to explode. But we will hopefully be soliciting much more community contributions of all of those different models, the brokerages, the data sets, by making a bunch of really good documentation and videos about how to contribute, all of that stuff. So it's going to be a very busy year. It should be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I'll try to keep up with you guys I try to subscribe to interesting people that have like the product updates coming out, just because I feel like the tech side, so I work in the tech industry now, there's so many people that are like following like, oh, Python's new release of this, that, and the other. And I'm always like blocked off to it. But I've started adding in those to see, actually get more involved in the features and how things are unfolding for companies and what additional features are being added. Because I'm finding out even, simple software, like we use Snowflake for our servers, and they have these, I don't know how many conferences a year, but there's always these virtual conferences going, and I miss like 90% of them. But there's always new cool things out there, and it's hard to keep up with all of those adjustments. So it's nice to be able to track on LinkedIn. Sometimes like I'll follow your posts and I see you'll post, oh, we're doing this, that, or the other. And then I go in and read about what you guys are working on, or
I'll try and be better about it. Well, most of our posts, our feature releases are all like stealth beta, stealth beta, stealth beta. And like we have like 3 months of bug reports in stealth, like just people using the new feature that we haven't announced or told anyone about. And then like 3 to 4 months later, we announce it publicly. Just because it's really nice to have that nice quiet like testing and improvement time and go live. Like we just added continuous futures. So we had future contracts, just normal future contracts trading. But then like actually doing the factors to bridge future contracts was relatively difficult. Like you have to, it's a whole, just like equity adjusted pricing, you have to go and calculate this massive library of factors for multiplying across all the contracts. So it's another like every single day we have to generate all these future factors, and it's just an easy one to mess up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be good to see you guys having more publications. So I know it feels spammy, but there's people like me that may not even use your product, but it's nice to follow up on like the features that are being added in and how they impact us. And I get the fear of it. I've started building a Python package for work just because my complaint of Python is not very statistical friendly. And so some people have asked me, and I'm like, it's out there. I can't say where it's at because I don't want people like critiquing it yet. And so I'm like hesitant on the same
Yeah.
stance. I
Yeah.
don't want people to judge it yet. I need to get it up and running and test it and have a few, employees test everything out before we actually say like, okay, it's finally
Right.
officially released.
No, I get it. I get it. Yeah, I kind of want to so QuantConnect, I'm talking a lot about what we do day to day in the engineering and the infrastructure of QuantConnect, but that's not the user experience. And I don't want people to think that it's all a data platform. It's a platform for algorithm design and modeling and testing and execution. And everything we're talking about, a lot of what we're talking about now is what we do. So, so the listeners don't have to. I hope they're not taking the wrong idea from it. But like, for example, one of the research reports that we haven't published yet, but we just finished yesterday, was we took a legal alerts service. It's an alternative data feed that is literally the US government regulation. It's just a stream of regulation coming out of the government and all the governments in the world. And we're able to use this sort of dynamic keyword analysis. So it's constantly looking back over the last 2 months. What are the keywords? What are the sentiments? And how did they perform? Like, how did the underlying assets perform once those regulations came out? And then trying to use that for some like future trading. And the algorithm is like, I don't know, 250 lines.
Oh, wow. That's short.
You're able to do all of that in 250 lines thanks to all of the infrastructure that's around it. It's just so cool to see something that sophisticated come out of it, powered by this new alternative regulation data set doing walk forward kind of NLP stuff. It's super cool. Yeah.
So have you guys started targeting, this is my guess at least, you'd start targeting smaller firms to start with the product where it's like the firm's starting up, you want to do your own fund, you want to focus on quant finance and research, but you're not wanting to do the rest of it. So it'd be a good advantage for a small firm to start building. But then in the same token, when you have scalability, I think, so someone in corporate America, the hardest part is switching to new software because you have to figure out, we call them deprecations, but what departments we have to close, what software technology you have to get rid of. Do you guys see that in the future as kind of a starting on the small scale and then moving towards larger firms as kind of a way to save on resources and time and money, as you kind of mentioned, right? Instead of reprogramming the same thing over and over and over again.
Yes. So precisely. So the kind of very, very long-term go-to-market is kind of that. It's you're onboarding these firms, they're starting up and bootstrapping inside QuantConnect and then growing. And so we have 90% of the users are still individual quants trading their personal accounts. And then about 10% of them are those fund startups. And the smallest one is $50,000 AUM, and the largest is a $2 billion ETF company.
Okay, that's pretty big.
They started on QC, and they're still using us in production and going through and doing all their research, and they have a 20-person team on it. So it's like it's just there aren't many of those startups in the world. So we will probably be expanding to other financial markets in the near future that I can't get into too much detail on. But yes, no, you're exactly right. The larger firms are often quite entrenched in very bad legacy technology. And so our strategy for them is we just are constantly working on being 100 times better than what they currently have. So eventually we have to make the switching cost to switch from their Excel bootstrapped, whatever it is. yeah. To switch from that to this, we need 1,000 alternative data sets onboarded. And then it'll be a no-brainer for that 5 billion AUM firm to switch. They'll spend a month switching and it'll be okay. It'll be worth the investment.
Do you see the switchover that was fairly easy given that you guys are already using Python? Because I know a lot of firms are moving towards Python or already using Python. Do you see that as kind of an advantage for you guys as well, where it's like that's not one more layer they'd have to change? So in banking, we have to, it's chaos now. We have banks trying to go from SAS, MATLAB, R, Python, all these languages, and everyone's trying to consolidate to one specific area. And so for us, we have a multi-tiered system and issue here where you have all the systems, which is like that back end, and then you have the layer on top, which is the actual programming.
Right.
But you guys see that as an advantage with QuantConnect in the sense that I guess you're not retraining anyone because everyone's already using Python. And then you wouldn't necessarily have to have the C# background. You could kind of plug QuantConnect into that and kind of reduce the cost of switching.
Yes, so it's really great that most of the industry is using Python now, and it definitely helps. The larger firms that I can't name, but top 4 quant firms in the world. I had a talk with like the CTO, VP, It was like, and listening to why they couldn't switch was basically just 15 years of alternative data integrations, and just the barrier was enormous for a firm of that size. So there's definitely in the 500 million to 20 billion AUM space, there's a lot of opportunity. Above 20 billion, it's very high risk to change, no matter what you're doing. So a lot of those larger players, I'm not sure they'll ever change. Yeah. What we do see in the larger firms even is the desks. Like they'll often have different desks, like a new equities trading desk starts up and it's just 3 guys and they've got a budget, but not restraints. Like manage 50 million, make money with it however you want, whatever tech stack you want. And most of those are starting up on QuantConnect.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because you're not tied into a legacy system that's kind of dragging you down.
Right. And it's like they're judged on their annual P&L. So every month that you're building a platform or rebuilding and re-engineering something that already exists, it's like just eating into your P&L. So yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I struggle with it because I've been at big banks, I've been at smaller firms, and yeah, getting that switch is always a big challenge. Right. And I think a lot of employees don't understand that because they're like, I had a colleague of mine who was like gung-ho switching every 3 months on some new platform and trying to explain even just the cost of training, the cost of systems, all the staff you have that support that currently. And then, yeah, if you're dependent on data sources or something that's just not available elsewhere, it's really hard to make that jump unless you can build a new startup team and start from the ground up.
Right. So one of the things we're working on now is we've got the cloud QuantConnect.com technology, and we're bundling all of that and putting it on premise. And we call it local platform, cloud platform. And it's identical. Everything about it's identical other than the data. Because our data licenses restrict us to hosting it in the cloud. And for many of the data sources we have, we can resell it for the data vendor. We just pass through the data sets to the users who want it. But this will allow those firms who want to build something on premise, they don't want to be touching the cloud, they can just sort of pull it from the open source. It'll have a beautiful user interface. Like all the back testing, all the modeling, everything will just be done and working locally. And then sort of tie into your whatever database you have locally. And it's a kind of more like a traditional software licensing model where people license seats and software. So it won't be like a cloud like AWS, but it'll still be a software license for them to use it locally, but very, very open source. So they can go in and they can change the engine however they like.
Okay. And that leads me probably to my last question here, which is how do you guys, so for me, the data seems cheap. Like I'm scrolling on your website and I'm seeing the prices. It's like, $10 a month for this, $8 a month for this.
Yeah.
It just seems really cheap because I've worked with vendors, some of the big ones like Bloomberg and Moody's and all them. And those contracts are huge and it's a lot of money to get data. It's not like waltz down and write a personal check real quick. Whereas you guys, I don't know how you're doing it, but it seems so much more convenient to go in and say, okay, we need data. We're going to model this exact area. QuantConnect has all these data sources and we can just pick the ones I need instead of having to go in and buy, all of them or having to go into these data vendors and then having to negotiate each and every price based off of each individual. So as you use this data, I mean, one, how do you get it so cheap? And two, Is this per license or is this per firm, or how does the pricing on the data side work?
Um, so the biggest challenge in these data vendors that you're talking about is the same challenge that a lot of financial technology has, is that the industry tends to sell where there's budget. So there's only budget in large AUM firms. And so as you know, you get this hyper concentration of AUM in these mega firms or mega banks,
Mm-hmm.
you are demolishing the rest of the industry. The middle and small like market data vendors are not able to, they're not able to sell to the middle and the small end of the market because there's not enough budget there to sustain them. So they have to sell to the big guys at the top, and they have to set the prices like extraordinarily high because there's only 10 people they can sell to. So,
Yeah.
so in order for them to pay for all the data engineers to do all the work, they need to sell it for like $1 million a year. And it's a horrible thing about our infrastructure in the industry. It's just geared this way at the moment. And we were a little crazy. We just thought, okay, that's what everybody else is doing. Let's do the opposite. Like, let's find a way that we can empower the small guys to compete so that they can afford and they can buy the data and they can do all of this. And we need to sort of skew the distribution curve. We need to like flatten it a little bit. So like it's not quite all concentrated at the top end. Mm-hmm. And the way we do that is all of those people come and use our cloud, and we're able to lower the cost of the live data feeds and the data sources because there's hundreds or thousands of them. And so they can sort of cost share between everybody and sort of access UTP SIP live data feed, which is tens of thousands of dollars a month, on QuantConnect, or 20, 30, $100 a month. It's like ridiculously cheap compared to trying to do it yourself. And from the vendors' point of view, the data vendors that are out there, they're not interested at all in selling to the three guys in the garage. They're not going to make any money on that sale. And so QuantConnect represents a giant aggregator. We're just one client aggregating thousands. And so that way they can access that market. They don't care that they're selling to smaller people. They can access it as long as it's not a lot of work to support it.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I know when we've bought data in the past, it's like we have all these meetings, which takes up a bunch of time. And then often they fly out to see us, which is flight cost, hotels, transportation, and all that. And at the end of the day, it's still up in the air of like, I might buy it from you, I might not. There's a couple other vendors, so
yeah, exactly. It's not like that at all. We're like, please give us your data. We'll do all the work. You'll never hear a word about the support. You'll never hear from these people at all, and we'll do everything. And the other thing we do that's quite unique is that all of those contracts that you're talking about, like with I won't name any vendors, but any of them, they're all annual. So it's like 400 people work at your company. You're going to buy it for a year. So A times B times C equals $300,000. Like just multiply this up. And with this, we try to say, hey, these are much smaller people. So there's one person in that organization or two people in that team, times they're going to use it maybe for a month. So divide by 12, divide by the times by the number of people. And it's like a much, much smaller number. And so that way we're able to, these data vendors aren't cannibalizing their existing sales. Like they're selling for the same price, but they're just dividing it by 12 instead of timesing it by 12. So it's a nice way to give people access.
So you could turn on and off your subscription. So if I needed this data for, I don't know, 6 months and the strategy dries up, then I could turn that off and then buy a different feed for a different project.
Exactly. Yeah. The minimum is 1 month.
Okay. That's short.
So you can be building, testing alpha, iterating really, really quickly, and it's good for the individuals and it's good for the firms because they can access small players as an aggregate.
Okay, very cool. Well, Jared, it was great having you on. I really appreciate the conversation and learning more about QuantConnect.
Thank you. No, it was really good, and I'm glad to finally get a chance to talk to you. And yeah, keep up the good work. I'm a subscriber, and I enjoy your channel too. So
I hope you guys really enjoyed this interview here with QuantConnect and Jared Broad specifically. I'm guessing if you've made it to the very end of this podcast, you are actually excited about this firm. If you are, they are going to be hiring, and so I will put a link in the description below to this opportunity here. It says it is going to be remote, junior position, full-time, and of course, you need to be able to program. A strong programmer in either Python or C#. Again, more details in the description below. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And as always, until next time.